Hello, everyone. Welcome in today. Today, we're going through our top 15 defensive backs in 2025 NFL draft. I'm going to lead this off by saying it's kind of late, so it might be recorded in two parts. Don't be surprised if you see an outfit change in here somewhere. But let's get started off here at number 15, and it's going to be Xavier Watts, the safety out of Notre Dame. He's got a third round grade to me. He's 6 foot, 204 pounds. He has 31 and a quarter inch arms. Let's read the blurb on him. It says, I have to admit I'm on the lower side for him. I personally don't like when a safety is a bad tackler who takes bad angles to the ball and run fits, and I see that a ton in his game. I think he will make a good deep safety who will use his eyes and go for the ball, which is where he excels right now. I think he is enough of an athlete to become a good man option, but for now, I think he needs a ton of work before I'd trust him in that role. I don't want to say I think, obviously Xavier Watts is undraftable. He's a third round guy. Like, I still think he's a good player. I just think everybody wants him in round two. And to me, he's more of a round three guy. I didn't like his tackling. Some people did. I didn't think his tackling was very good. I thought, at least in the games I watched, that's the other part of scouting here is it depends on what games you watch. And in the games I watched, I felt like he wasn't a great tackler. I felt like he took bad angles down to the ball at times, at least in run fits, like I said, because when the ball's in the air, the dude makes a play and he finds a way to get there. And that's what you love about him. And that's what you hope can translate to the next level. But, you don't know. Ball production really is inconsistent. Like, a lot of that is on his instincts. He has good instincts and he knows and he trusts his eyes and he goes for it. But at the same time, you can hit dry spells. And if he hits dry spells and he's not a great tackler, you do have to worry about him a little bit. Either way, let's move on to number 14 on our list, and it's going to be Jacob Parrish, the corner out of Kansas State. He's a smaller guy at 5'10", 191 pounds. He has 30 and 7/8 inch arms. He ran a 4.35, which is impressive. He had a 1.51 10-yard split, 37.5 inch vertical, 10.9 broad jump. Let's read the blurb on him. It says he's likely to play in the slot at next level, but he has the athleticism and tenacity to play on the outside as well. He looks to be a sticky man coverage corner who actually landed some nice press reps as well in the tapes I watched. He has silky smooth hips and plenty of speed to allow him to change direction and stick with slot type players. I think that he even has good eyes and zone coverage, and he is feisty at the catch point to knock balls out. I think he was a good tackler who was very willing to throw himself into a play, and that's something I really like. Honestly, I'd be higher on Jacob Parrish, but his size isn't ideal, and I know there's a guy higher on my list that you say the same thing about, but I don't think he's quite to his level. But Jacob Parrish, man, round three, I think you're going to get a starting slot. He might even be able to play on the outside for you. I won't rule that out. Like, he doesn't have ideal size, but he's feisty and he's a good sticky cover man. So there's a chance, but slot's likely in his future. He has plenty of athleticism to be a real good slot, and that's a third round value, and there's nothing wrong with that. And this is probably going to be a longer video, so beware of that and stick around and, hit that like button if you would down below. I'd truly appreciate it. On to number 13 on our list, and that's going to be Darian Porter. I don't know what the heck came out of my mouth there. Out of Iowa State. He is a third round grade to me as well. He's an older prospect. He's 24 years old. He's 6'3", 195 pounds. He has 33 and an eighth inch arms, which is incredibly long. He ran a 4.30 40, which is impressive. He had a 1.49 10-yard split, 36 and a half inch vert, 10.11 broad jumps, incredible. 6.71 cone, 3-cone drill, and a 4.04 20-yard shuttle. Let's read the blurb on him. It says he's an older prospect who didn't get on the field until last season, and to me that raises some serious questions, especially since he is a freaky athlete. And yes, I do know he started at receiver before he transitioned DB in, I think, 2022, so he was the DB in 22, 23, 24, and last year he played less than 500 snaps on defense. I didn't love that, especially considering he started the games. It just didn't make a ton of sense to me with a guy with this much raw upside, but let's continue reading the blurb here. I think that he is still very raw, especially in man coverage, because he simply didn't play it very often. Even though at his size and speed, he probably profiles as a press man corner at the next level. In zone coverage, I think his eyes improved as the season went along, and that gives you hope of future growth there. He has a ton of value on special teams that adds to the floor as an NFL player for him. And that's the thing, man. He was a special teamer throughout his career. So that kind of helps elevate him into the third round. Like, he's probably more of a fourth round guy to me in some regards as far as how raw he is, but he has a floor of being a good special team player. And dude, the athletic traits are incredible on him. And I can understand taking a shot at a future starter in round three with him. Like, he's a guy you want to bet on. He's still really raw, don't get me wrong. And I think the NFL and myself has learned a little bit that like a third round pick's not bad. He reminds me a little bit of Zion McCollum, who plays for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Go Bucks. In that essence of coming out, he still had a lot of developing to do. He fell to the fifth round. Shouldn't have happened. I learned my lesson on that, and I think the NFL probably did as well, which is why I think the third round, he's still a developing prospect. I could see him slip into the fourth, but to me, he's a solid third round guy. And for somebody that has elite traits like that, like there's high end developmental prospects that I'm like, okay, fourth round, got a lot of work, but this is an elite developmental prospect right here with the size, the speed. Like he profiles as somebody that could be an elite player in this league. He has a long way to go, but it's a possibility. So to me, that's a third round value. That moral of the story. The next guy on my list is Kevin Winston Jr. I tell you what, he's somebody that I hate having this low, and I almost flipped him and the next guy on the list, but injury is the main reason. He's coming back from a torn ACL. He's still young. He's only 21 years old, I think, for his basically his entire rookie season. Yeah. So he's a young player. He hasn't played a ton. He got hurt. He tore his ACL or partially tore his ACL, I think in the second game, a few plays into the season. Into the second game of the season this year. I really like Kevin Winston Jr. He comes in at number 12 on my list. Let's read the blurb on him. It says he's a young and developing player who's raw because of missed opportunity to play this past season. I think that he's still developing his feel for the position as I see him get out of position at times during the play. But I do think he's a good, secure tackler. I think that he has the upside to be a cover man and handle slot players and tight ends 1v1. I think one-on-one, his size, his speed, I think he'll be all right. I think he ran a 4.48 when he ran his 40. I haven't confirmed any of that stuff yet for the pro days and put it in here. I'm not releasing my draft guide this year. I was going to, but I think next year I'm going to release a draft guide and put it out there a little bit more accessible to everybody. But for now, I'm keeping it to myself this year and I'll read the blurbs to you. So I didn't update with the pro day stuff. It's all just based on combine times, and he didn't test at the combine, still coming back from his injury. But overall, he's just raw, but you want to bet on the traits with him. He's somebody I really like. I personally think that he would be in contention to be safety 2 in this class if he stayed healthy. I really like safety 1 in this class, so he probably won't get ahead of him if he was healthy, but he could. He has the traits, he has the size, the speed, and if he was healthy, I can tell you what, he would be higher on this list, no question about it. Coming in at number 11 is a guy I'm betting on. He doesn't have the size you want, but I'm betting on him anyway, and it's Billy Bowman Jr., the safety out of Oklahoma. I've got around 2 to 3 grade on him, which is also where I have Winston as well. He's around 2 to 3 guy. But Bowman's 22. He'll be 23 at the end of his rookie season. He has 28.5-inch arms, though. Don't love that. He ran a 4.42 40. That's good. 1.52 10-yard split, 35.5-inch vertical, and a 10.3 broad jump. I really like Billy Bowman. Let's get into the blurb on him. It says, I think he is a very fluid athlete who has very good play speed. I really like his tape, and I wanted to give him a mid-second round grade, but due to lack of length and size, I feel like I can't get there with him. I think that he is a fantastic cover man who will make a great deep safety. I love his eyes in zone, and I think he handles his area very well. I think he is surprisingly well equipped in man coverage, but his lack of length shows up at the catch point versus bigger players, especially tight ends. I was impressed with how he ran the alley and filled verse runs and underneath plays. I do think that he was a good tackler. Sure, he wasn't a thumper, but he got him to the ground. And that's something that I heard a lot of people say they didn't like about Bowman. But I feel like I didn't have an issue with his tackling. In the games I watched, it looked fine, And, there's a chance I probably won't get the more tapes before the draft on him. But if I do watch more tapes, maybe it'll show up to me. We're running out of time, so I'm trying to fill in the back end of the here. So that way when I do my grading of the draft classes after the draft, that'll be coming out for every team in the NFL. I got to make sure I have enough prospect. You have to scout these guys before you can give an opinion. So I'm trying to fill the bottom of the draft out right now, or who I think could be in the bottom of the draft. So I don't know that I'll get back to watch more of Billy Bowman, but that's something I've heard some people talk about recently. And I'm like, man, I didn't see that on tape. So to me, if I have time, I'm going to check back into that and just see if the tackling issue shows up, because I didn't see it when I watched him, but hey, maybe I'm missing something. He's really good, though. Let's move on to number 10 on our list. And this guy is sticking inside of my top 50 area, even though I'm not sure about doing it. He's somebody that might move down. I don't know how I feel about him. I'm still trying to finalize my final rankings. But Alzaraya Thomas, the corner out of Florida State, he is a young player, which is what you love about him. He'll be 20 when he's drafted. He turns 21 in July. 6'1.5", 197 pounds, 32 3/8-inch arms is incredible. 10.2 broad jump. He's a press man corner who you love. But you got to be honest, at his pro day, I think I heard 2 different times. I heard 4.60 and I heard 4.58. Either way, those are both not good times for a corner. It's one of the few positions where I think the 40 really matters. And he simply wasn't fast enough, and I do think them issues showed up on tape. So let's read the blurb on him. It says he's a press man corner who lacks top end speed. I think he does a good job forcing the receivers to the sideline and using his length to help him stay in phase. He's very physical at the line of scrimmage and lands a good strong punch to knock receivers off track. Lack of top end speed shows up when faster wide receivers break on their routes, and he will get grabby and hold the receiver. In zone coverage, I don't think that he looks comfortable, and to me, he seems to not trust what he sees, and that's the big issue with him. I think that with his speed, he profiles more as a zone corner in the NFL, and I'm not sure that he's good at zone coverage. I didn't see it. He didn't look comfortable, and I didn't think he was great. So it's kind of like, what do you do there? He's a press man corner who doesn't have the speed. So could you maybe hope he becomes a number 2 and you can shade a safety his way the entire game? Sure. But how often are you going to run cover 2 man? Like, how often are you going to be able to help him in them situations? Is it going to become more of a liability for your defense? Is he somebody that's going to have to come into the league as a press man corner and be able to do that sparingly when he's asked, but have to completely learn how to change his game? And how long is that going to take? Luckily, he's a young player, so he has time to do it, but it could take a few years for him to figure it out. And I do question that, honestly. I have some questions on how well he'll be able to adjust to being a zone corner because I didn't see the comfort level in it at all. And honestly, with his speed, I think that's what he's going to have to do. So he's somebody that might drop on my list. I still have him in top 50. I really liked him, but there's some questions there, and it might boot him just outside. I still think I'm going to keep him in the second round range though, just because I really like this tape. I'm not going to get super low on him. I've seen other people really crap on him and say he's a day 3 prospect now, and I'm like, I don't know that I can get there. But you do have to address and adjust that. Say he's a little lower. It's just facts. Coming in at number 9 on our list is going to be Benjamin Morrison, the cornerback out of Notre Dame. He's got a top 50 grade still. He's a 21-year-old, and I think he's 21 his entire rookie season. He is. Obviously, he didn't test with his hip injury. I've heard there's going to be a private workout, I think, soon for him. Or no, that's Will Johnson I was thinking of. He had 30 and 3/8 inch arms, and that's it, really, for measurables and stuff at the combine. The main thing with him is he's 6 foot, 193 pounds, but he had hip surgery, and he had hip surgery in high school as well, I guess. So that really begs some serious questions. And my blurb on him's a little bit different than normal because there's some projection in there. Like, I think with a hip injury, he's gonna probably come out of it a little stiff. I don't think he plays stiff right now, but it's 2 surgeries. I think 1 on each side. If I've heard 1 on each side, I've heard both on the same side. I don't know fully what to believe there. I'm not a doctor. I don't get this information, but from what I've heard from other YouTubers, from TV people, is 1 on each side. So the question there is, how can he come back from it? What kind of player will he be when he comes back from it? Because if he didn't have that, he's a first round grade to me. Like, I gave him a true first round grade if he was completely healthy, but I really knocked him hard because hip injuries matter and injuries matter in the draft. Like, I'm not trying to choose who I think the top 50 guys will be, but at the same time, you have to look at the value and go, look, you want your first round guys to contribute right away, and there's questions on whether he will be able to. So it says I have a much higher tape grade on him, but due to injuries, I really have to knock him down. To me, he probably will become a high-end zone corner, even though you may think he could be a press corner by looking at him. So my question is, and this is where there's a little bit of projection, I want to say that, is he could end up with a little bit of stiffness in his game coming back from the hip injury that could limit his upside as a man corner because it'll make it slower for him to flip his hips and then re-accelerate and burst. So you have to question how much upside he's going to have as a man corner in the NFL. Now, in zone coverage, he seems to have good eyes and enough athleticism to break down to the ball and make a play. As a tackler, I do think he can be a bit inconsistent, and at times he almost seems uninterested. But in later tapes, he seemed to get this cleaned up. So I don't know, maybe it was just early in the year, but he didn't really even want to get involved. Like, I don't like when a corner gives up on a play and doesn't run it down, because what if the guy that's covering him misses the tackle? If you don't keep running to the ball, you're not there to make, to back your man up basically and make the play here, and you need to be. That's it with Benjamin Morrison. I worry about, like I said, stiffness creeping in with 2 hip injuries, and that will change his game in my opinion, which is why I dropped him quite a bit. But we're going to move on here to number 8 on our list, and that's going to be Savone Ravel, the corner out of ECU. He's a 23-year-old who's 6'2", 194 pounds. He has 32 and 5/8 inch arms, which is incredible. And he's another guy that I might have a borderline, like, he'd probably go in the first round here. Like, he'd have around 1 to 2 grade for sure if he wasn't hurt. He might even be a guy that I think solidly goes in round 1 if he didn't get hurt. He just tore his ACL in the third game of the season or something like that, I think it was. And unfortunately ended his season, and it hurt his his ability to get high in the draft. He's still a top 50 guy to me. I think he could sneak into the first round. And if I was a GM at the end of the first round, I'd probably take a shot on him. He's still lower on my board because injuries matter, and you have to question that. But at 6'2", 194, he didn't test his speed, but I tell you what, it looks really freaking good on tape. I'm sure that'll be fine. Either way, let's read the blurb. It says he's an athletic freak who would be a top 15 pick if he didn't get hurt, in my opinion. He is a very long, fast corner who lands a strong punch in press coverage. I think he will be an excellent press man corner in the NFL. He does need more time to develop, which makes sense coming off an injury and missing most of his final college season, along with his weird path, which we'll talk a little bit after about. I do think in zone coverage, he can get out of position at times and allow the receiver to find the spot and settle down in his zone and not see it or be late reacting to it. And I think he's a good tackler who will come down and attack the ball carrier. Now, Savon Ravel is somebody, he didn't have the grades coming out of high school to be able to go and enroll in college right away, basically. So he wasn't recruited. He ended up going JUCO, and he was working and going to an ECU camp. And from there, he earned a scholarship offer, but he had to get his grades up. He did. He went to ECU, and he stayed loyal because they were the first to show interest in him and work with him. So he stayed loyal to him. He's just, like I said, kind of a raw prospect that I think has the upside to be one of the best corners in the NFL. With his freaky athleticism, man, he could be incredible. I want to put him higher, but injuries are the reason why he's going to be a little bit lower. And we're going to move on here to number 7 on our list, and it's Trey Amos, the corner out of Ole Miss. Now, he's somebody else that in some ways I wanted to put higher, but I'm not sure that he's a first round guy. So he's still a top 50. He's 23 years old, 6'1", 195. He has 31 and a quarter inch arms. He ran a 4.43, which actually surprised me. I had some speed questions on him, but that was fine. His 10-yard split wasn't the best at 1.6. That's a little slow, but still not terrible. 32.5-inch vertical and a 10.6 broad jump. It says he looks like a press man corner to me. He has a great build to play this way as well. I think that he is actually pretty good in zone coverage, but I do think his eyes will get him in trouble at times, causing him to get out of position or leave his zone. I think he is a good mirror. I think he does good mirroring receivers and forcing them to the sideline to shrink the field and leave less space for a completion down the sideline. One problem I noticed is he would get grabby when he was taking on faster or twitchier players at the break, which is where I thought speed might be an issue for him. However, I think his acceleration with the 1.6 10-yard split kind of goes, okay, that's where the issue is, which is why I didn't move him up higher on this list after that 40 time. It says I think he is very physical at the catch point, and he has the long arms to disrupt the ball. I will also say that I think he is a good run defender, is pretty consistent tackler, but at times he can tackle high, allowing for extra yards from the ball carrier, which it is what it is. But ideally you want him to go low, get him to the ground, and not allow anything afterwards. But you can live with that. He's getting him down. He shows a tenacity and a willingness, and I do like that. He hasn't played a ton in his career, so he's still developing, in my opinion, as well. At least at a high level, I should say. He played at Louisiana, I think it was, for Billy Napier before he went to the Gators, and then he transferred up to Alabama. Didn't play much because Alabama was stacked. And then he headed over to Ole Miss and played. He's still a developing guy as well, I think, in my opinion. But I really like Trey Amos. It's just that 10-yard split kind of confirms my thing with him of my question is, I notice, like I said, out of breaks, he kind of gets grabby and handsy. And it's not that he doesn't have the straight line speed. It's that when they change directions, I think he's a tick slow to do it as well. And he gives up some separation. He immediately grabs. He needs to work on that. If he gets that out of his game, I don't think he'll necessarily close that gap as quick, but he's still a good player, man. I like him. He's just needs a little bit more work and a little bit more polish. And I think the same can be said about the guy who's next on our list, and that's Maxwell Hairston, the cornerback out of Kentucky. He's a top 50 guy to me. 21 years old, which you love. 5'11", 183 pounds. A little shorter than you'd love. A little lighter than you'd love as well. But he has 31-inch arms, which is really good for his size. A 4.28 40-yard dash, 1.50 10-yard split. And see, that's the difference there. Like, that 10-yard split matters, and how quickly you can close. When a guy breaks on an out route or the ball's thrown, it's how quickly you can click and close is what they call it. And you close that gap, and you can compress the space between you and the defender. Because as a corner, you don't know where it's going, or as a receiver. Because as a corner, you don't know where they're going. So you need to be able to read and react. Like, it's very important to read and react as a defender. And it's how quickly you can close that gap and get downhill on the guy. And that's where I think Amos struggles a little bit, and why I have Harrison ahead of him is because he has that natural athletic ability to be able to close that gap super quickly, which you love in a corner and you need to have as well. But for Maxwell Harrison, there is a bit of a question. He was accused of he has an SA accusation when he was as an early enrollee. I think it was at Kentucky. I guess the case was recently closed, from what I just heard. I can't confirm that. It is something you have to bring up. He was accused of it. That might take him off some teams' boards. That's just a fact. He is an elite athlete for the position. He is also very fluid in his movements. He looks very comfortable in both man and zone, which is a rarity in this. I think he's one of the few players that's comfortable in both coverages. So that's a good thing to have in your back pocket, and why I have him higher on this list. I will say I think he lacks the lack of strength limits his ability to be useful in press coverage. I love how quickly he breaks down on the ball when it's in the air, and it translated to turnover production as well, which is a huge plus. I think he has very good eyes, and they generally lead him to the right spot. I think it even shows up in run fits, and it says I think he's more aggressive versus to run than what he's given credit for by a lot of people. However, I did see him miss multiple tackles, so that needs to be cleaned up, and he needs to learn how to finish the play. Some of that's probably due to his size and his weight, but he does need to wrap up and get the guy down. But he was pretty aggressive in triggering down, so if he can finish, I think a lot of tackling concerns people have with him will go away. I really liked Harrison. Like I said, still a developing player, though. Don't have a true, I don't know that he's round 1 to 2. Like, he might be able to sneak into the back half of the first round, or back end of the first round. I have no issue if he does, but to me, I'd be more comfortable taking him at the very beginning of the second round area. I understand if somebody takes a flyer with that athletic ability. Let's move on into our top 5, and it's going to be led off by Nicky Minwari, the safety out of South Carolina. He's 21 years old, 6'3", 220 pounds. He's an athletic, tradesy guy. That's really the thing with him. He has 32.5-inch arms. He ran a 4.38 40 at that size. He has a 1.49 10-yard split, which is disgusting. He has a 43-inch vertical, 11.6 broad jump. He did 20 bench press reps. Dude's freaky. Let's just be real. And let's read the blurb here. It says he is a freak of nature who has all the athletic ability that you could want in a safety. I do think that you have to be honest with yourself and admit that he's an inconsistent player right now who needs development. I've seen some good run fits and hard-hitting tackles on screens, but in other games he was not effective at all, and he was missing tackles and taking bad angles to the ball. I think he is good in coverage because of his speed and size, but he doesn't look to be the most fluid athlete, and he doesn't always understand where to be, it looks like. I don't know if it's on South Carolina's what's going on there, but at times I've seen his back pedal looking choppy and unnatural at times, and he even stumbled during some of the reps, especially early in the season. I think he is a big projection, but I'm willing to swing on his upside, is basically my feel on him. To me, he's probably more of a, based on his play, back into the second round guy, but I'm betting on upside with him, and I'm saying he's a round 1 to 2 guy. Nicky Minwari is everything you want in a safety: size, speed. When it comes to an athletic build, maybe a little bit more fluid in the hips, you would like to see that, but he's raw, and I think that's the truth. He's raw. You have to be real about it, but he is somebody I'm willing to bet on. Not doing it in top 15 like some people are getting. I don't think I'd do it until after pick 20 probably, but I think he is worth a shot at the back end of the first round for a team that, like Minnesota, I think would be great. He can learn from Harrison Smith for a year, develop a little bit, and I think he could fill in as a strong safety there and be fine. That's somewhere I really like his fit. Don't know that they would do it, but I think it'd be good for him to play for Brian Flores. Either way, let's move on. We're at number 4 on our list, and it's a guy that would be higher, but injury questions, and they've popped up throughout his career now. It's Will Johnson, the corner out of Michigan. He's a round 1 guy to me. He'd have a true first round grade, and he'd be much higher on this list. He'd actually be the number 2 player on this list if it wasn't for his injuries. He's 6'2", 194 pounds. He has 30 and an 1/8-inch arms. He had a ton of injuries throughout his career. He missed games during their national title run at the beginning of the season. I think it was a knee injury. This season, he missed a ton of time. And my biggest question with him, he had a toe injury, a shoulder injury, and I think he had a quad injury, so he didn't run at his pro day. He's constantly hurt, and hurt guys don't usually stay healthy in the NFL. And I think that could cause him not to have the career we think he should. I love him, and I get why people are betting on him higher. And he's not super low on my list. He's not it's not finalized yet. We're getting pretty close. But right now, he's number 15 in my top 50. However, he should be top 6 on I think probably, if it wasn't for these red flags with the injuries. It's just they've popped up all over the place throughout his career, so I have to drop him down. I love him. but you have to be real with yourself when it comes to injuries. You know, it's hard for a guy who's already hurt a lot to stay healthy and have a long, productive NFL career. And that's just what it is. And that's the thing with him. But if you're still here, I'd like to, before I read the blurb on him, if you could hit that like button, I'd truly appreciate it. You know, we've been working really hard on getting these out. And after the draft, we're going to have full grades for the NFL draft for every team. So I'm going to be watching these prospects, guys that I can get tape a hold of, you know, that I didn't watch. I plan on watching before I release them videos. So I at least have some sort of educated decision. And I'm going to follow a similar format. I'm going to give the shout out to that franchise guy when I grade them. The first 3 rounds are all going to be A, B, C, D, E, F, you know, A, B, C, D, and F grades. And then my late round picks, day 3 picks, it's either going to be a good value, okay value, or poor value is how I'm going to grade them. And then I'll give you my final grade on them. Just because like day 3 is a shot in the dark and you can't get too mad unless it's like, oh, I have this guy as a 7th round pick and you're taking him in the 4th. Like I get that, but how can you say a guy's a B or a C when it's like I had a 5th round grade, but you're taking him at the end of the 4th? It's like, so that's how I'm going to do it. Let's read the blurb though. It says, I thought he would be a press man corner, but after watching tape, I came away thinking he's better in zone coverage. He looks to be smooth in his back pedal and he turns his hips with ease. But the issue I notice is he doesn't seem to have good top speed and plays mostly in off coverage. He looks to have good eyes and feel for zone coverage and will aggressively attack the ball and has the ball skills to make the play. I did see him with a perfect pick 6 that he read perfectly out there and he timed it perfectly as well. The last negative that I will say I seen on tape is he doesn't seem to want to play against the run and he'll miss tackles. I love Will Johnson. Those are minor critiques at the end. I don't think it's that bad. He's not, a lot of these top corners aren't like super aggressive versus the run. You would love to see him clean it up, but I didn't think he was that aggressive. It's all right. I don't hate him for it. He'll be all right. He's just got to stay healthy. Let's move on. Number 3 on our list. It's Jahdae Barron, the corner out of Texas. He's probably going to end up being more of a slot guy. He's a round 1 guy to me, though. He's 23 years old, 5'11", 194 pounds, which is a little shorter than you'd like. 29 and 5/8 arms. Don't love that, but he has a 4.39 40, 150 10-yard split, 35-inch vertical, 10.3 broad jump. So it says he may be undersized for his position, but I feel like he isn't confined to the slot and could be effective playing the outside if needed. I didn't see him play a ton of man coverage, but I did notice he can get grabby at times when a player breaks at the top of his route. I think in zone coverage, he has great eyes and he puts himself in position to make plays on the ball, which led to him consistently forcing turnovers this past season. He appears to find a way to dislodge the ball, even though he has shorter arms at the catch point. As a run defender, I think he's very willing, and overall, he's a good tackler. I like Jahdae Barron. He is going to be very high on my list. I don't think he's confined to the slot. I do think you can play him outside like a Mikey Sainers drill. I don't think it's his best though. Like he's probably more of his own corner if you're going to play him on the outside. That's what he played at Texas anyway. So, I mean, that's where he's most comfortable. I think he's probably a slot safety is his best role in the NFL. And it's hard to put him high when that's what you say. But I also look at it and I go like this. I'm not a GM of an NFL team, but a guy in the slot plays. Like they're a starter nowadays. So how come you're like, oh, I can find him later? Yeah, but you're not going to find Jahdae Barron later. I'm just going to be honest. It's like Mikey Sainers drill. I couldn't understand last year why he went in the 2nd round, other than size and he's a slot corner. And I knew that's how it was going to go. But for me, I'll put a 1st round grade on a guy that's going to be a starter for me. And I know is going to be an effective player and be good. Like I don't understand why it's like, oh, you play slot, got to put him in the 2nd round. Brian Branch is worth more than that. Mikey Sainers worth more than that. I think Jahdae Barron's going to be worth more than that. I have a high grade on him. I don't think you're going to draft him and say, yep, he's going to be outside corner day 1, and that's what he's going to do. I think he could do it, but I think you're best to put him in the slot and use him and move him around. And I think that he'll be an effective player. And I know positional value, a lot of teams won't have him this high, but for me, I love him. He's high on my list. Let's move on to number 2 on my list total, and that's Malachi Starks, the safety out of Georgia. Look, I can't get low like everybody else on him. He's a round 1 guy to me. He's going to be high in my top 50. He's 21 years old. He has 31 and 5/8 inch arms. He ran a 4.50, not the best 40 time. 1.51 10-yard split's good though. 33-inch vertical, 7.26 3-cone, not good. 4.45 20-yard shuttle, not great either. We're just going to be honest with that right off the top. But when he is out there actually playing, dude, he's awesome. So let's read the blurb on him. It says he had a down year this past season, but he is a smart defender who's very versatile. He is a good athlete who has loose, fluid hips and can change direction with ease, which his testing didn't show that, but I thought he could when I was watching him on tape, which is where the question comes in. He was a bit slow, and that's where, what do you trust the combine scores? Because like the 3-cone and 20-yard shuttle show you he doesn't change direction with these, even though I thought he was fine on tape with that. So You do have to question that a little bit. But once he's actually moving, playing the position on the field, it doesn't look like an issue to me. It says, I think he has fantastic ball skills. I know he only had one pick versus Clemson in week one, but just look back at 2023. I personally think he is a really good playing in zone coverage, and he will be at his best as a deep safety in the NFL. He's a good run defender as well, but he can occasionally take a bad angle to the ball and get himself a little bit out of position. I do think that he will miss some tackles as well for shiftier players, as I've seen them shake him in the open field. But overall, he's a good tackler that you can count on, I think, mostly. I like Malachi Starks. I'm not going to drop him. I know he didn't have the best season, but you know what? Sometimes it happens, and I think people drop you too hard for it. And the reality is, he's a good player, and he shouldn't go super low. I'm going to stay high on him. I'm going to bet on what I seen in 2023 and the fact that I don't think he was as bad as people make him out to be in 2024. And that's how we're going to grade him. Let's move on, though. Number one on the list, no shock here. Travis Hunter, cornerback / receiver out of Colorado. You know, he's a top 5 guy to me. He's 21 years old, 6 foot, 188 pounds, 31 3/8 inch arms. Travis Hunter is a beast. Like, there's nothing else you can say about that. But if you're still sticking around, smash that subscribe button for me, man. You watched the whole video. You can look back at all the other position rankings I've done. Next up's going to be pass catchers. And then we got quarterbacks, and we're going to have a top 50, a final mock draft, and then we're grading everybody's draft. And then over the summer, we're going to do some scouting. And I think we're going to try to probably do it team by team if I can, instead of position by position. We're going to look at the LSU roster. We're going to look at the Florida roster. I don't know, though. I haven't made up my mind. We might go position by position. I just think looking at rosters is more interesting because it also previews the college football season as well, in my opinion, which we're kind of a hybrid NFL, college. You know, we're a different style channel. I'm not going to lie here. I haven't fully nailed down what I am yet, except for it's draft season. We're a draft channel. We're going to cover prospects, but during the off times of the draft stuff, like what do we do to stay busy and to keep content coming out and to provide you guys information? Well, I love college football and I love the NFL and I want to preview both. And I think that's what we want to do. And I think by scouting prospects and looking at teams, you can preview the college football season along with previewing the next draft. And I think that's how we might do it. Either way, let's read the blurb on Travis Hunter. It says, everyone knows he's a fantastic two-way player, so I'll also provide separate notes for him as a wide receiver. As a corner, the ball skills that he has at receiver easily translate to the defensive side of the ball, and he attacks the ball looking to make a play on it at all times. I think you can argue that he may be a little too aggressive to attack the ball, but he has the athletic ability to make up for it and make the play. I think he turns and runs with ease, but you don't see him backpedaling that often. It's normally a side shuffle, but I don't see why he wouldn't be able to develop a more comfortable and fluid backpedal. I think he does a good job forcing players to the boundary when they get down the field on him, limiting the space for the receiver to make the play. I do see him struggle against inside releases, and I think his footwork can be a little off there, and he allows some pretty quick separation, so that's something he needs to get cleaned up. And that was typically when he gave up the completions I seen on tape, but I do think he just needs development and more time on task, and that comes with him playing 2 positions in college, honestly. Like, I think that's the biggest thing is I think guys, like I said, slants, digs, stuff like that is where he gave openings, or especially in man coverage, so he needs to work on that a little bit. I think he's a willing and effective tackler as well, and I do believe he rarely misses. Some people criticized it a little bit, and you know, I can understand it. Some of my same complaints that I had with Ben Morrison and Will Johnson of not always chasing the play